Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, Donkey Lady. An idea of what the Donkey Lady maybe looked like. Anyone growing up near San Antonio probably heard a story about the Donkey Lady. There are many different variations, and since I've been looking into it, I'll try to post what I find here. On the south side of San Antonio is a bridge known to be the home of the Donkey Lady. Some say she's a ghost, while others say she's a living creature. Half donkey and half human, the Donkey Lady Bridge is at the end of Jessrd before it runs into Applewhite RD. She is said to live in these woods around the bridge and jump on your car damaging it with her hooves if you park here too long. There are many stories on the internet about this San Antonio legend. Whether she's a ghost or a creature, the Donkey Lady story is scary and well known throughout many parts of Texas. Several stories detail how the Donkey Lady came to be and how she became part donkey, part human. Some stories say she lost her children in a fire set by her husband. She was terribly disfigured in the fire, fusing her finger and toes together, creating hoof-like hands and feet. Her head was so badly burned in the fire that it healed in such a warped, elongated fashion, so it resembled that of a donkey. She roams the area surrounding the bridge in South San Antonio nightly, crying for her children. She will routinely chase off anybody who bothers her by honking. Honking a car's horn is supposedly the best way to get the attention of this beastly Donkey Lady. Another story about how the Donkey Lady came to be surrounds the same bridge area of South San Antonio. In the mid-50s, a woman would walk her donkey along the road to the fields near her home to let the donkey graze. A boy claimed the woman's donkey had bitten him, so the boy's father and several of his friends plotted to grab the donkey as it was being walked by the woman to the fields. They waited in the woods and then jumped out when she walked by and tried to grab the rope from the woman that was leading her donkey. As they fought for the rope, the donkey accidentally fell into the stream and drowned. The men were walking away when the woman started throwing rocks at them. A rock hit one of the men, knocking him unconscious. The other men grabbed the woman and threw her into the water, where she drowned. The spirit of the woman and her beloved donkey combined into one and now angrily roam the area around the bridge. The Donkey Lady ghost is said to have enormous strength, scary eyes, beastly screams, and rage that haunts any who bother her or come into her vicinity. Down in an area near San Antonio, there is the legend of the Donkey Lady. She is reportedly the spirit of a horribly mutated woman appearing to be half woman, half donkey. She is reported to haunt a bridge in the woods south of town, and this location has become a hotspot for local thrill seekers, both young and old. This story is not directly related to me, but happened to some friends of mine. I have known them all my life, and have no reason not to believe them. One night in late 1987, while at my best friend's house, her fellow companions showed up bored and looking for something to do. We suggested they visit the Donkey Lady Bridge. This location was only a short drive from the house, 5 or 6 miles, and was a local favorite amongst late-night stories. They agreed and were soon driving out of sight. About 6 hours later, their vehicle returned to our driveway with only one occupant, assuming he had taken the girls home and that he was ready to party in SA. We went out, anxious to greet him. What we found at the car is something I'll never forget. The windshield was busted, the front dented, and there was what appeared to be blood all over the hood. We immediately ran over to the driver's door to see if John was all right. However, John was just sitting there staring out the window, with a blank expression on his face. After several minutes of consistent badgering, we finally got him to talk. Lisa, Terry, and Jill arrived at the bridge. They began to honk their horn, trying to summon the legendary donkey lady. After about 15 minutes of not seeing anything, they decided to go into the woods and look for themselves. What happened next was truly incredible, and if I hadn't have known John all my life and seen the car, I would not have believed him. While walking in the wood, John said he got the feeling they were being watched. He immediately stopped and told everyone to be quiet. Looking around and evaluating the situation, he discovered what appeared to be two eyes staring at them off in the distance. These eyes seemed to be reflecting the moonlight, and were of a color that he said to be indescribable. The girls panicked and began to run back to the car. John was quick to follow, and soon after he turned away there was a horrible scream from the direction of the eyes. He described it as almost being a cry from an intelligent animal. Too afraid to turn around, he picked up the pace as he ran to the car. When he got there, the girls were already in the car, screaming for him to get in and leave as he was trying to find his keys. He heard what seemed to be the sounds of a horse running in their direction. Starting the car, he slammed it into gear and put it to the floor. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the road in front of them. Too afraid to stop, John collided with the figure. It hit the hood of the car and rolled over the roof. Looking in his rear-view mirror, he said he thought the figure got up and continued to pursue them. After hearing this, and seeing the condition of the car, Steve and I immediately felt this deserved a second look. John told us he would never return to that bridge again, but if we wanted to risk our lives to go right ahead. Grabbing two flashlights and a pair of shotguns, these were the biggest weapons Steve's father had. We jumped in my pickup and made way for the bridge. As we drew closer, we slowed down and turned on the many off-road lights my truck had. These lit the road and the woods to the side of us as if it was daytime, giving us an outstanding view of the bridge as we approached. The first thing we noticed as the bridge drew near were the numerous amounts of blood on the road. However, these were the only signs of evidence we could find upon investigation of the woods by foot and shotguns. We discovered what seemed to be several tracks of a small non-shod horse leading to the road. After several hours of looking and not finding anything else, we returned to the house. By this time, John had already found his way home, and we lay in bed, too excited to sleep. To this day, none of the 4 individuals involved in this story have returned to the bridge. Did John actually see and strike the donkey lady that night? Or was it merely a stray pony startled by their presence? All I know is that something was there that night, and it scared our friends half to death. The second story, The Man in My Dreams. As I prepare to end my life, I am writing this post. I have something disturbing I feel I must share before I end it all. These past several nights I have not gotten even an ounce of sleep. I'm afraid I'll see him again. I use the word him very loosely. After all, I'm not sure if this thing is even a human being. The first time I dreamt of him, I wasn't sure to think of it. He was there, looking at me, and he was gone, simple as that. I woke up and shrugged like it was nothing, but then, every other night, he appeared somewhere in my dream, only closer than the last time. Didn't he matter what the subject of my dream was? He was ALWAYS there, watching me every time I saw him. He got closer anyone I knew that was in my dream with me, like a friend or relative goes missing, or is killed in the dream in real life, the same thing happens. I'm not sure if it's a coincidence anymore. One thing I think I have failed to mention is that this man wears a bunny mask. It sounds pretty ridiculous, but he doesn't wear a bunny suit. Just a mask, but the space for his eyes is just completely dark. There aren't any eyes, just nothing. I'm afraid to make direct eye contact. I feel like in these dreams, I have control over what I do, yet I can't seem to get away from him. Today, I woke up and went to get the mail, and attached to my mailbox was a letter. It doesn't have any return address or postage stamp. It has just a letter that someone physically taped onto my mailbox. I opened it up, and written on it, upside down, was the phrase "always watching you." Reading this made every hair on my body instantly stand up. I couldn't believe that my dream was suddenly becoming reality. I sent this thing to the police department and filed for a restraining order. Unfortunately, since there weren't any fingerprints or return labels, I was shit out of luck. Not enough evidence, the police chief told me. I drove the long way home, just to sort of clear my head. I'm sure it was just a clever prank being pulled by the asshole jocks from my high school. I mean, not the first time it's happened. When I pulled in the driveway, I noticed another note. On my door it had a link written on it. When I opened up my laptop, I went to that website, and it was an archive file of pictures of my house. A picture of a man walking with a camera, with a peculiar shadow. A pic of the side of my house in broad daylight, but worst of all, a picture taken by my living room window of me sitting on my laptop. Just hours ago there were about 15 of these disturbing pictures on this file. The last one nearly made my heart stop. It was a picture of a man wearing a bunny mask. The third story solitude. The loud knock that came from the other side of the cabin were caused both Alex and Samantha to jump. The lights had gone out, and there was the wretched howling noise that was caused by the wind when it wound through the numerous surrounding trees and scraped up against the cabin's exterior. The knock was followed by silence, other than the howling wind outside, and after the wind stopped the world became dead silent. There was no movement, there was no noise at all, not even the sound of the waterfall just beyond the trees. It was like the world had stopped suddenly. The second knock, this one more of a bang, was laid upon the door, causing it to shiver on its bearings. Alex looked to Samantha, her terror reflecting in his large brown eyes. He stood, slowly approaching the door with a hunting knife in hand. Setting his palm upon the handle, he slowly opened the door, but it was what was on the other side of the threshold that shook him to his core. It was odd how quickly Alexander Carter had invited his girlfriend Samantha Moore to go to his cabin in the mountains for the weekend. The outlook was snowy, frigid cold, and just altogether dismal. He wanted to go, though, said it was the perfect time to go hunting. He called her at work, and she hastened to pick up the phone as always. After dating for nearly 3 years, who wouldn't? So as soon as work let out on that fateful Friday afternoon, that weekend, he dropped by her flat in his Land Rover, picking her up and beginning the long drive up to the mountains for the weekend. On the way there it blissfully began to snow. The frigid air picked up, and driving the upward winding trail to the cabin was like driving at light speed with the snow acting as the stars flying by in space. Finally, upon reaching the cabin, the two clambered from the vehicle and hurried into the abode. Samantha said about turning on the lights and setting the fire in the fireplace, Alex set about bringing in the luggage and taking it to the bedroom. The cabin was small. It had 3 rooms only: a bedroom, a bathroom, and a living dining room attached to a kitchen. The kitchen was small, but had all the necessary utensils in it: a coffee pot, a stove, a microwave, and a miniature refrigerator, which was currently filled with wee cold bottles of beer and wine, and other assorted liquor from when he brought her up here on her birthday. This cabin was well used. It was their escape from reality. Little did they know that what little they knew of reality would be shattered this weekend. After all the unpacking had been done and sandwiches had been made, the two nestled into their love-seat couch, frosted beers in hand. "Maybe we should come and just live here," Alex said. "It's nicer here, and we wouldn't have to work so much. I mean, your parents bought this place back in the Stone Age," Samantha joked, sipping from her bottle afterward. She gently pressed her head into the palm of her hand as she sat with an elbow in the cushioned seat and her back against the arm of the couch. She wound her back brown hair around her fingers, looping it in and out and just stroking it. Her bright green eyes flickered from her bottle to his chiseled face. He cracked a smile, ruining the stone-faced visage he had held since the moment they had arrived. "Maybe so it'd be nice to be here with you all day long," he spoke, his voice deep in tone. He was a tall man, fit and taut, with strawberry blonde hair and liquid chocolate brown eyes. Samantha giggled, setting her beer bottle down on the table and crawling over on top of him, pinning him to the couch before pressing her lips to his in a heated, passionate kiss. Alex attempted to put his beer bottle down on the table next to hers before grabbing at her waist, kissing her gently in return. All of a sudden, there was a knock at the door, one terrifying to hear, as they were alone in these mountains. Alexander looked at Samantha, who was still pinning him to the couch. "What was that?" He heard her ask. He shrugged and gently pushed her off of him before standing and walking to the kitchen where his hunting knife sat. He quickly grabbed it and slipped the sheath off of it before leaving the kitchen. Samantha appeared beside him in the hall leading to the door before he shushed her and told her to go back to the bedroom. She refused. The electricity in the cabin flickered, and they both looked up at the ceiling. A terrible feeling of doom rippled over their skin as they stood, staring up at the hall light above them. The loud knock that came from the other side of the cabin caused both Alex and Samantha to jump. The lights had gone out, and there was the wretched howling noise that was caused by the wind when it wound through the numerous surrounding trees and scraped up against the cabin's exterior. That knock was followed by silence, other than the howling wind outside, and after the wind stopped, the world became dead silent. There was no movement. There was no noise at all, not even the sound of the waterfall just beyond the trees. It was like the world had stopped suddenly. A second knock, this one more of a bang, was laid upon the door, causing it to shiver on its bearings. Alex looked to Samantha, her terror reflecting in his large brown eyes. He stood, slowly approaching the door with a hunting knife in hand. Setting his palm upon the handle, he slowly opened the door. But it was what was on the other side of the threshold that shook him to his core. Bitter wind turned the heated air in the cabin to cool, causing a horribly cold feeling to inhabit the makeshift home. Snow flew in through the doorway and past Alexander, falling in little spirals, until they hit the floor and melted. A pale figure stood, covered in snow and shivering to death, in front of the door. "Cece, could I see come in and warm up?" IWWW was hiking when TT the snow began, he said quietly, unable to control the stuttering that happened, because it is almost frozen being. Alexander pulled the man in by his parka before slamming the cabin, or shut on the frigid circling wind. He shivered and looked at the man who was currently shaking so bad he could hardly stand. Sam, go get blankets and grab some of the coffee we made earlier. It should still be warm, and if it isn't we can heat it in the pot above the fire, Alex stated. The thin woman nodded, before scampering off to find blankets in the cupboards of the bedroom. The tall redhead hurriedly helped the man whose fingers were trembling too badly to get his parka undone. After stripping the man from his jacket, he sat him on the couch. Samantha appeared and wrapped a thick blanket around the man's shoulders, before running off to get the warm coffee. Thank you so much, the man stated, nodding as Samantha returned with a somewhat steaming cup of coffee. The man took it with trembling hands. He cooed as the heat from the cup radiated into his fingers. What is your name? Alex asked, sitting on the coffee table and looking at the man before him. He wasn't a big guy, couldn't be much older than Alex and Samantha. He had short, dark wavy hair and bright blue eyes the color of aquamarine gems. My name is Jason LeBont. I'm a botanist, and I was up here hiking and doing some research on the wild vegetation that grows up here during the winter, he responded, after sipping some more coffee. His nose was pink from the bitter cold beyond the threshold. What are your names? He asked. The couple looked to each other, and Alex responded, My name is Alexander Carter, and this is Samantha Moore, my fiancée, he said. Jason's eyes flickered back and forth between the young couple. I apologize for intruding. I just was beginning to not be able to feel my legs anymore, Jason said, finally breaking the tension-filled silence. Look, I hate to impose, but oh, dear, Samantha, your nose, he said, setting the coffee cup down and pointing to her nose. A deep crimson liquid was trickling from her nostrils, the area around the bridge of her nose looking bruised and swollen out of nowhere. Alex turned sharply, looking at her before sighing, and running to the dark kitchen in search of supplies to clean her nose up. Oh shoot, go on. We're listening, Samantha said, tilting her head back and pinching her nose. She winced slightly upon the pressure and sighed loud of her mouth. The blood trickled down the roof of her mouth and into her throat, forcing her to swallow the irony-tasting liquid. She nearly gagged at the thought of the blood running down her throat. Well, I was going to ask if I may perhaps sleep here. I couldn't find my way down the mountain in the dark, Jason asked hesitantly. Of course you can have the couch this evening, and we'll drive you down the mountain in the morning after breakfast. All right, Sam said, her voice nasally from her nose being pinched. Finally, the blood stopped running. But that didn't stop the aching pain in the bridge of her nose. Jason merely nodded, and after some blankets were tucked into the couch, he curled up on it and laid down to sleep. Electricity still out, they left the fireplace going, hoping some sort of heat would continue to radiate throughout the cabin. The couple then went to bed themselves, thinking about their guest and how odd it was that he had shown up so late in the evening. The evening passed smoothly, but when morning came the couple found themselves shivering, so cold their breath could be seen even with the softest exhale. Bundling up in the clothes they had arrived in, they stepped from their bedroom and walked down the hall. Neither of them knew how they'd make breakfast. The fire had gone out, and the electricity still hadn't come on chances were. They were snowed into badly to get the door open, but they could still try. Bright white lit up the inside of the cabin, streaming in through the windows as it reflected off of the fresh snow. Their guest, Jason, was already awake, sitting on the couch and scribbling notes in a booklet. He turned when he heard footsteps. "Good morning, you two. Are you ready to go?" he asked. Smiling, Samantha rubbed her neck, so all over her body ached, and was bruised randomly in the oddest of places. She even had dried blood on her nose when she had woken up, but had since cleaned it off. Alexander could barely walk or speak. Even breathing was hard to do. "You may have to help us. Instead, go out and see if the Landover starts, please, and then head down to the ranger station," Alex asked, before clenching his chest and dropping beside him on the couch. Jason stood and helped Sam lay him on the couch, where he lay writhing in pain from the horrible pain in his chest. "Go ahead, I'm going to stay here with him. Just tell them our names and ask them to send a chopper or something. I can't move him like this," Samantha said, stroking Alex's hair. Jason nodded and opened the door, braving the cold snow with the keys in his hand. After pushing piles of snow from his path, he walked out of the cabin, shutting the door behind him. The tall male opened the driver's side door to the Landover and slipped an out of the blistering wind key in the ignition. The terrible car's engine turned over, but never started. Finally, on the last time, it blew out, and wouldn't even start up the next time he tried. Jason frowned and stepped from the vehicle again, hurrying to shut the door. He took a glance at the cabin, and then took off in the general direction of the ranger's office. It took hours, but he finally made it just as the sun approached noon. He walked into the hot office, walked into the desk. He peered over at the small rotund woman who sat behind a computer screen. "Hello," he said softly, to which was met with a grunt of greeting. "Look, I need your help there. There's a couple up there in their cabin. Their car won't stop, and the man is having problems with a pain in his chest," Jason said, exasperated, already frustrated with the woman. The short, round woman looked at him with wide eyes. "Make up what you say. Do you know their names?" she asked, looking over the brim of her glasses at him. The stale air in the office became heavy with tension. Yes, their names are Alexander Carter and Samantha Moore. They drive at Ark Green Landover," he replied, overjoyed that she was listening. Finally, the woman stopped typing, her face growing pale. "That's impossible, sir," she said, taking her glasses off to look at him. "No, it isn't. I just stayed with them last night." "What do you mean that's impossible?" he said, his voice raising slightly in pitch and volume. His palms began to sweat, and he felt himself shivering once more, a feeling of impending doom shuddering over his body in waves. "Sir, we found it Ark Green Landover. Wrecked off the mountain, drive into a tree. In flames. The driver, presumably male, had a large tree branch through his chest, and the passenger had a broken neck. After investigating further, we found the driver to be Alexander Carter, and the passenger to be Samantha Moore, both 26 years of age. They died, sir, 2 days ago."